Hey guys, welcome to a new video. Time to look at the best champions in 8.3 right now. I've had a pretty big shake up this patch, which we probably didn't expect really. 8.3 was supposed to be a pretty small patch. Timestamps are going to be down below to skip your roll if you want to, and as my voice isn't back to normal just yet, you can find a summary of the picks down there as well. So, starting with AD carry as always. Tristana is back to the top, I think now, the most well-rounded and best performing AD carry. So this is basically though because Kog'Maw became shite this patch. That's not even me exaggerating anything. They took off 2% from his W, but with rageblade, like we said in our rundown, that's actually 6% you lose every 2 auto attacks, which is a lot of damage. He literally went from the best win rate to the worst in one patch. So now he isn't dominating as hard. Tristana is the natural one to kind of take his place already. She is obviously very safe, and in this meta of damage and crowd control flying around everywhere, that is really important to have. She also fits the support meta. There are two sides really. You can go aggressive and you can jump in with the one-sided supports like a Bromma and Alistar, and you can also farm and use censer really well from the other side. She is always going to pop off past like 3 items into a game, but she does have the potential to do that earlier with her jump resets, her E, like kind of a natural damage as well. It's kind of like there's no risk to picking Tristana right now. If you get behind, you can farm and carry late game. If you get ahead, you're going to pop off earlier with your resets. Now Varus could maybe give Tristana a good kick up the arse for the top spot, but it's very, very close. He is really good from just 1 item, even better at 2 to 3 items with the rageblade synergy that you're going to have with the other items. The thing with rageblade is it's just very good as soon as you buy it right now, but Varus is also strong himself around that sort of time. He's got good range, good damage with his blight stacks and popping those, same as Tristana, right? You can fight or you can just kind of farm in your lane. His angle though that he really brings is the engage with his ultimate, which does 2 things right now in 8.3. Number 1, it catches people and starts a fight, which is really good at the moment. We always group up, we want to be fighting and stuff. It's a way to make plays, which is really good as an AD carry. Number 2 though, it holds that person who dives onto you while you stack and pound them vigorously with your rageblade, which is really, really good. So that is Tristana and Varus, but now honorable mention for Jinx is also really good in 8.3. The buffs definitely helped her out a lot. Jinx is at the moment at least more of kind of mid-game centered AD carry, it seems like. Her late game is obviously quite strong, but like mobility wise, it really sucks at that point. Her AoE crits and her get excited and stuff, her passive mid-game is just kind of crazy, and you also have to remember that her recent buffs are deliberately doing this. They moved some attack speed scaling from late game to mid game specifically. That is why she seems so much better at that phase and better earlier now. If we take a look at the mid lane next, we have the same as always, your Oriannas, your Azirs, Twisted Fate types. They're all still very good, but there are a few new boys kicking around as well. This first one is a perfect case of how Season 8 has changed certain types of champions like Xerath and Poke champions specifically. Before, you would kind of require like 2 to 3 items really to start hurting with your Poke damage, but now statistically at least, he wins most of his games in the first 30 minutes. It actually follows the same pattern as a Katarina, which is really weird because they are 2 completely opposite sides of champions. If you think about it though, early into the game, there really is no answer to Poke damage just yet. He can pound you from really far away. There's not much you can actually do about that. Part of that is he's very safe. He is one of the highest damage averages per game. He gets a decent amount of kills per game and assists at the same time, so lots of gold. Xerath is a really good hard carry champion in his current state in 8.3. Plus, he is really good versus meta champions like Azir, Ryze, and Swain. So the other one we're going to talk about is Veigar. He's one of the most underrated mid laners at the moment, but becoming really solid now that a lot of others are shifting around a bit more. He doesn't do that well versus some matchups like Xerath or even Fizz, but mid lane has a lot of staples that are kind of there every single patch, right? The ones we talked about before, the Azirs, the Ryze, and stuff like that. Veigar does really, really well against those. Typically, the thing that they have in common really are they're not that mobile and they can be caged and just instantly blown up. That's what Veigar's really good at. That cage is obviously awesome for team fights, but it's like he isn't that particularly nuts on his own. It's just the current meta he does really, really well in. After the changes he had a little while ago, he's just really dangerous. Like if you get to late game, it is even worse than before for the enemy team. He just scales so well. By the way, his spellbook is still fine if you want to use that, but after the nerfs, we're seeing a lot more of Comet now. The honorable mention, the last one we're going to talk about is Fizz, who popped up almost out of nowhere and suddenly really, really good this patch, especially in Europe and North America, by the way. There's no real surprise that he has almost the highest kills average per game out of champions at mid lane, close to 9, which is really high. The scary part about that though is he does that while having a lot of deaths per game, having one of the lowest average CS for mid lane, and while taking a lot more damage than most mid laners. Fizz is a champion that can kill you and can snowball game and just end it really fast while barely having to CS for gold or actually play smartly, I guess. It's kind of gross. There are a lot of really good junglers at the moment on this current patch. It's one of the most diverse roles, but if you can engage, you can tank damage and still do damage yourself, you are on to a proper winner. The first champion we're going to look at covers all of these with ease and is a literal beast if he gets ahead early game, which is Warwick. I know it sounds kind of weird, but if the enemy Warwick gets fed, I'm honestly very sad as an AD carry. I know I'm not going to be able to kill him for like the next 25 minutes while he tears me a new one every fight. He soaks up more damage per game than a Sejuani or a Rammus even though he's not building full tank. He can heal and he's also reducing the damage at the same time, plus he even has red smite. All of that together as well, if you think about it, it's going to take a long time to get through him and actually kill him early to mid game. That is really the phase where he shines. You also have to remember that he does a butt ton of damage alongside that, so he will duel and he will kill almost all junglers or laners that he finds alone. If you can time your Q as well, by the way, to follow somebody's flash, that is like guaranteed tilt material right there. I have never seen Warwick follow somebody with their flash and the other person not rage after an ult chat. Skarner is one that we have seen a lot more in the LCS recently, but he's actually really good for solo queue as well. A big part of this is because he's so good at punishing mistakes now. If you walk too far, you get too close, you try to fight him when you can't or whatever, you are going to pay the price for it and you're probably going to die. This whole thing started a few patches ago when he got a really good buff to his E, the stun, the range thing. That damage was increased, but the stun duration was increased as well. He gets so much free stuff in his kit now when you actually look at it, is unreal. Attack speed, move speed, and mana regen from his passive. His W gives him move speed, plus at least 10% of his health as a shield. His E slows for 2.5 seconds and stuns for 1.5. Even his ultimate is like 2 seconds as well. When you realize how much damage he's pumping out alongside that amount of crowd control, I think it's pretty ridiculous. That is like 3.5 seconds of disables when you're trying to fight him. That is a long time. This is partly why he's so good versus any carry junglers. Obviously, his engage is sick, like that's what he's kind of for, but like you can't really dive in versus him either. You go for his AD carry, he will insta-ult you and you're gonna die afterwards. Last one we're going to talk about is Udyr. On a good player, I think Udyr is awesome in 8.3. Not quite straightforward to win with as the other two we mentioned, but he is really, really good. His damage is nuts. With Trinity Force and Warrior now with his Q after those buffs a little while ago, he will just burst you super hard. He's pretty tanky, but also just mega slippery too, so you can't really lock him down to kill him properly. Definitely a really awesome tilting pick for solo queue. Support has not really changed that much at all. We got no real direct changes in 8.3, so no surprise, it's pretty much the same. Janna is the first one we're going to talk about, but everything I say for Janna basically applies to Lulu and also to Nami as well. It's kind of these protection supports, right? All really good with censer and sitting a bit further back in the lane and in team fights as well. They are the queens, though, of mid-game team fights. That is really why you pick them, and it's even better now because you get Aunt Censer faster because they don't have to buy a Sightstone anymore after those changes. You still do good damage early game, though, this season with Aerie and with Spell Thieves as well after those changes. Probably the biggest difference actually between bad and good Janna players is how aggressive they are early into the lane. Anybody can press E, right? It's not that difficult, but harassing the enemy, bullying them is actually very viable with the new runes, and it can grow your lead in the lane phase, which isn't supposed to happen. Alistar is the flip side of this. Applies to Braum as well, Blitzcrank maybe at the same time, where instead of playing for team fights, you play to get ahead early game. This can be just as good, if not a better strategy for solo queue really, but it needs you to actually think and to make plays or to roam. Alistar is so tanky though, so that's why we're focusing on him really, and a lot easier to use than the other supports now. And for solo queue at the moment, you can fight with your combo, you do a really good amount of damage, and it's very straightforward. You walk up, you press your abilities, and they're probably going to die if you have a bit of follow-up. You can also actually tank though and frontline for your team, giving them more time in a fight to actually do something, which is going to help even if you don't realize it. Roams are the biggest thing though. They are so deadly. Going behind towers, diving people, that is kind of the angle that makes him carry really hard. So the honorable mention for support is going to be Brand, and just how Janna gets her censer quicker, Brand gets his Liandry's quicker and does a lot of damage now. He got buffed recently to have even more percentage damage flying around. That combination of having Liandry's and a passive buff is really, really good. It seems to be a little bit more at lower ranks where you aren't punished by an Alistar or whatever, but he can actually shut down the enemy AD quite easily, and he's also very good against mage supports. Top lane has shifted a little bit from this island into being more about moving around the map now and swinging fights into your favor. At least those are the top picks for now. Camille is a really good example of this. So she doesn't farm that well, she dies quite a lot, she doesn't earn the most gold in the game, but she's still really effective despite that stuff. Her damage is crazy high with the build at the moment, and a lot of that is burst damage at the same time. So you've got your stun to fly in, you have your ultimate to keep them trapped, which by the way is amazing for team fights or roaming ganks and stuff. A lot of people really struggle to play versus her at the same time. They don't really know what to do versus her flying in and bursting them down really fast. At the moment, she's basically fulfilling this role of like a roaming, ganking, assassin, jungler, kind of. As weird as that sounds, I don't know how else to describe it. From all of her stats and stuff, like how she's performing, she seems to be the one that can carry the hardest at the moment. Sion is the other one I want to talk about. This patch has gotten even better than he was before. It is not just Korea who is abusing him a ton. Tanky champions are designed to frontline and die, right? That is their job. They just last as long as possible, except Sion has one of the lowest deaths per game. Personally, I don't know about you, but I think that's ridiculous. He engages, he literally charges into the enemy team and still dies less than most other top laners. This is what I actually think makes him so insane at the moment and gives him such a high win rate. He can't be killed until quite far into the game. That just gives his team a massive advantage, gives them so much time, and almost always their frontline tank is going to die before Sion does. Obviously, you have the crowd control as well, right? To slow them down and to prevent you dying even more. And your zombie form afterwards, which wastes even more time. Not even mentioning his engage, which is awesome. He can catch people and win the game for his team that way. So he lasts forever, but he can actually have a massive impact. Yorick is the final one I'm going to talk about in the video. Still really good. Will melt towers as well if he left alone for just like a few seconds. He is more centered around his Trinity Force and Steric's Power Spike though. The two together give him a lot of damage, but also make him survive a lot longer. I think at that phase, that 1 to 2 item phase really in the game, there aren't many champions that can stand up to him right now, and that's why he's so good. There is a big issue with Yorick though when you play him. Like as the game goes on, others will start to be more useful, and you can't obliterate towers, you can't team fight as well either. So there you go. Those are the best champions in 8.3 at the moment, and also why they are so good at the same time. Thank you for watching the video. Let me know what you think. Like the video if you do, but for now I will leave you with the robots.